Hey HTDA and welcome back to Satisfactory, and in fact this is going to be a brand new run. I'm going to call this my bite-sized run, because basically what we are trying to do in this run is optimize our build such that we minimize the amount of time we spend building, hence the bite size. So you're supposed to be able to progress without spending weeks and weeks on building some massive factory. We're also going to make sure by doing that we maximize our progress while making it all look good, of course, because I don't want any spaghetti in my builds. If you've watched my Dyson Sphere program runs or my previous Satisfactory run, you'll know that, so making sure everything looks clean is definitely a priority. When it comes to the starting areas, there's actually a lot of opinions about which area is the best. The grass fields obviously is, I think, the most beginner friendly for the simple reason that there's not that many enemies there. The terrain is relatively flat, but on the other hand, the resource nodes here are on the lesser quality side of the spectrum. On the opposite side of the spectrum, the Dune Desert is definitely the most hostile, but it's also rather flat. And it has very nice resource nodes. However, I do think that when you just look at the entire map, and that's what I've done in preparation of this series, is that there's actually a kind of a natural progression from the grass fields to the rocky desert, through the northern forest, towards the Dune Desert in terms of the end game. So I think it just makes the most sense to start in the grass fields for your first playthrough, as well as maybe any playthrough really, because that will just help you progress in a natural way through the game without using nodes that you might want to use in the end game later on. Also going to be skipping the intro. I know what I'm doing. If you haven't played the game before, I do recommend that you keep this on. Otherwise, just bear with me and we'll take it together. Once you get into the game, locate the arch in the grassy fields. Should be visible from pretty much anywhere that you can land. The landing locations are different, so I actually landed right in front of it, but that might be slightly different for you. Now, also make sure you equip your little Xeno Zapper. You will need it to defend yourself, and if you start it without doing the tutorial like I did, you will have some base materials on you already, including some miners. That's very convenient. If you are attacked by anything that is hostile, just try to jump over it and keep moving. Don't forget to press shift to make sure you're running all the time, and then start moving kind of to the south. Let's see, to the south. This is the south, yeah. So we want to be on the south side of the arch. And the reason that we're going there is there's actually a nice starting location, I think, that once again allows us to very naturally and organically move out from where we are starting. Now, it will take me a moment to get my bearings as well. We don't actually have the map unlocked just yet, but I think we should be moving in the right direction. So a little bit to the southwest. And let's see, in this direction, I'm actually taping all of this for the simple reason that it might help you kind of locate where you need to go. There are some slugs here and there on those rock formations. Don't bother about those for now, but try to remember where they are. Once again, if you get attacked, just keep jumping. There's another slug on a rock over there. One more over here. In short, lots of slugs. We're going to need a couple of those, but not too many for now. So let's see, did I move in the correct direction? There is the arch, we want to be to the south of that. So let's see, we're a little bit off actually. So we want to be almost directly to the south of it. Someone was biting in my behind. If you keep jumping while you're under attack, they should not be able to do too much harm to you. Just make sure that you don't get knocked off a cliff or something like that. Now we have some iron nodes over here that are impure, but we are actually going a little bit further because there will be some better ones over there where we're actually going to set up our first shop. So let's see, is that over here? Almost there. There we go. So over here we have some unfriendlies. Also a very fun way to get rid of those is just jumping while they charge at you, and try to do that in such a way that it's a whole family of them now. The interesting thing is they will actually throw themselves off the cliff. There you go. And then you don't actually have to kill them. Now if you throw them off the cliff, they will respawn pretty quick, so make sure you keep your zapper ready to go just in case they come back. But anyway, like I said, we have the arch over there, and we're almost directly to the southwest of that. So I'm now looking to the northeast, so if you should be standing on top of the arch, if you will, then looking exactly into the southwest direction should lead you to these two nodes. So this one over here, this is a normal iron node, and we have another normal iron node over here as well. So that is where we'll be starting. Now to start off, just place some of these portable miners that you already got on the iron patch over there. I suggest placing your starting hub in between the two patches so we have power close by. And then finally over here, if you scan for copper, it's easy to find. We actually have a copper patch hiding behind these bushes over here. And as you can see, I already placed one of the miners over here as well. Now as soon as the miners are full, you can open them, grab some base materials out of them, and then we can start crafting. And the first thing we want to craft is an equipment workshop. Just place it down somewhere close by so you can easily reach it. And then let's make a few more of these portable miners. Now the reason we want some more of these is that we actually just want to build every facility just once, and because we don't have foundations and I can't stand anything that is not placed down on foundations, we're just gonna go with the portable miners first, unlock a few things, and then make sure that everything we build is there to stay. So just a handful of these will actually do. I actually, while I was talking, made a few more, but that's okay. We can always put these to use. Place a few more of these on the copper and iron nodes, and then scan for limestone. I think it should be in this direction somewhere. Yep, there we go. There should actually be a limestone node very close by as well. As you can see, there is some raw limestone on there as well that we can easily pick up. Double clicking, by the way, on the portable miners is a lot easier way to place them down than what I was just doing. I think we have some visitors as well, so let me make sure I stay alive while I do this. There we go. Hello, poke poke. And just jumping back. Pick up the things that they drop, by the way. We will be able to put them to good use later. So, like I said, place down a couple of these. We are going to need quite a bit of limestone in order to make concrete. And once you've placed most of them down, you don't need to necessarily place all of them down. Just collect the raw limestone that you get. Now, once you've collected all of this, just make sure you empty the portable miners, and then let's go back and make some concrete. And this is the milestone we're trying to unlock before we start putting down any buildings, just to make sure we can actually put buildings down somewhere they're actually going to be staying. And that is this first milestone that only needs 200 concrete, 100 plates, and 100 rods. These should be very easy to craft with all those materials you have nearby. Remember, you can craft them on your crafting bench over here. If you press space, it will auto craft them a whole bunch at the same time. So it should only take you a minute or so to make all these base materials. Once you've made all of that, just put it into the hub and press the big red button, and congrats, you now have foundations unlocked.
Milestone reached. You have unlocked several structures aimed to provide the first needed to build basic factory infrastructure and improved overview. Building these will provide a grid for more advanced organizing and sectioning of your factory.
And that is exactly what we will be doing. Before we start building, I actually want to relocate our hub. So let's take the equipment workshop with us as well. And let's move this to a more central location in between where our copper is, where our limestone is over there. Copper is over here, and we have this little hill over here. I think we should be able to place our little hub. We have so many little things, I sound like Bob Ross now. Anyway, let's just place that down over here. It doesn't really matter in which way you face it, but considering we'll be building towards this direction, I think it makes sense to have the power over there, facing there, because remember, we do actually have this little biomass burner, once again little, in here. So now all we need is some base materials, and we can start setting down our starting facility. Okay, so let's get some automation going. We should start by placing down some foundations, and yes, you can actually place them over the nodes. If you press Ctrl, you can snap them to the world grid, and if you press R, you can switch mode. So we're going to start in zoom mode, It will allow us to drag this in a very long line, and that will just make it that much more easy to build some foundations all over the place. Now let's see. We are going to have to build a couple of these out here as well. We're going to clip through some of these stones. We can remove those later, but for now we'll just have to deal with their existence, unfortunately. I don't necessarily like them, but yeah, what can you do? Not much at this stage in the game. I made a lot of materials up front, mainly to make this a little bit faster, but if you are playing yourself and you're probably not going to want to wait around for your base materials that long, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with speeding that up a little bit. I actually want to raise this foundation a little bit off the floor, and we can do that by going vertical. Now, of course, we do want to go vertical in a less extreme way. There we go. Zoop, there we go. And that will just raise it off the floor a little bit. And usually it's best to start working with 4-meter foundations, just to make sure that you don't have flying foundations. That just looks very ugly. And this allows us to make sure this stays connected to the floor. There we go. That also means we are going to place down some ramps just to make sure we can get around a little bit easier. There we go. Something like that. Okay, so automation. We are going to be placing some miners. We have one miner over here. It will snap to the grid. Yeah, I actually like it facing in that direction. And then for the other one, we are going to quickly pick back up a portable miner from our inventory over here. There we go. And then actually, if you click the middle mouse button while hovering over a building, you can copy it and you can place a copy of that. So there we go. That's 2 miners. And then let's see. We are going to need some smelters. Well, just 1 for now, actually. Let's make sure the in and outputs are facing in the right direction. There we go. That's 1. And then we have a constructor next to that. And if we press Control, it will actually align it to the grid, which is quite handy. Let's just keep it as close as possible. There we go. And then we're going to need some belts in between. So let's see. Let's see if we can make that as tidy as possible. So 2 steps back from any corner will make sure you get a 90-degree angle like that. Now this is going to make iron ingots, and this is going to be making rods. And then on this side we will have our smelter. Let's see, what direction? If we can go with the same direction, actually. Should probably flip it around because that's the entry point. There we go. Let's move that a little bit out. Will that actually fit? Yeah, I think we should be fine. Because we're going to need another constructor, and that will go over there. And then we'll connect these 2 up, connect these 2 up, and then we'll set this to iron ingots once again, and then we'll set this to plates. Now all we need to do is make sure we have some power, and that should be fairly straightforward. I'm not going to show you this every single time around for the full process, but if you're new to the game, you're probably going to want to know how this works. So just click a power line to your biomass producing unit over there. Let's place a power tower over here, maybe a power tower over here, and then let's bring this all the way back. It can actually go behind here. It might be nice and tidy. And then we have 1, 2, 3 buildings over here. So we'll have 1 over here, 1 over here, 1 over here, and yeah, 1 over here. And then we need to connect this one up. actually, if we want to connect that neatly without it clipping through anything, we are going to need another power facility over here. Almost fell off there. Oopsie. There we go. That one. That one. That one. And yes, I know I could have been a little bit more efficient about my power poles, but they are very cheap, so it doesn't really matter. Now we'll have iron ore being produced here, ingots being produced here, and plates being produced here. We have some rods coming in here, and then all we need to do is actually place down a couple of storage units, because of course we do not just want to store these in the actual building themselves, but we want to make sure we can grab them whenever we want. So let's have one over here and one right next to it for the rods. There we go. For some reason I never got into the habit of using shortcuts, which you probably should, but yeah, I can live with it. There we go. I think that should make a nice little angle all by itself. Now actually I don't necessarily like this whole flying around that we have over here, so I'm going to make that a little bit more tidy by placing it down to the bottom like this and then up like that, so it looks a little bit more tidy. And we'll do the same thing over here as well. And then we actually need more rods. Well, I happen to know where I can find some of those. Not apparently over here because it's no longer powered. What happened? Ah, we need more power. Well, that brings me to the next stage. We actually overloaded our power grid. Let's find a nice little place to build some biomass burners. Probably something over here should work. That's a nice corner. We don't need that much space for that. We're also going to need some more concrete, so be right back while I build these biomass burners. And there we go, nothing fancy, just a couple of new biomass burners. I also connected up the second one on our actual hub. I forgot the both of them have a separate entry point, so now we have two of these small biomass burners. They only generate, I think, 20 megawatts. And this one should be producing 30. Yes, it is. So we now have a nice amount of power to work with in order to make sure we have our facilities up and running. Now, we should now see plates coming in. Yep. And that means we can now also finish our belt over here. There we go. And now we should also have rods coming in. So that's two more items that we don't have to handcraft anymore. And next up on the list is concrete. Alright, so next up is concrete. And we will definitely need all the concrete we can get because, well, just building this already took me, I think, a few hundred concrete altogether. Oh, and my power just turned off. So that's another thing you will want to do in the early game. Is whenever you run around and you encounter some bushes like over here, just spam the E button so you pick up whatever you come across. Makes it easier to kind of navigate around when you don't have all this green stuff in the way, and you can throw it in your biomass burners. But yeah, like I said, we definitely need all the concrete we can get. What I also like doing is actually connecting my early bases together like I've done over here. That will cost you additional concrete, so don't focus on it. If you don't have that on you, remember just to always, when you start building somewhere new, press Control to focus the foundations on the world grid. That way you can always snap them together later. But the reason I like connecting them is it gives you a bit of a feel for how much space you have to work with. And you do want to leave some space between your individual buildings. Why will become obvious in a couple of episodes, but for now, just trust me, just leave yourself some room. It also holds for the actual buildings themselves. As you can see, I set this up with a little bit of room, and that will just make it a lot easier to upgrade once we get a little bit more technology going. And that means we have one more left to do, and that is the copper node. Now, it's worthwhile knowing that if you use the 2 meter and 4 meter foundations, you will always be able to snap them back together, and when I'm talking about snapping back together, I mean your individual bases, in such a way that you can easily use the ramps. If you use the 1 meter foundations, that's those smallest ones, as your initial way of putting down foundations, the game somehow centers it on the axis in such a way that it can get a little bit out of tune. So I just demonstrated that here. You get this effect, and there's no ramp that's actually this small. That's because it centers it on the vertical axis in the middle. And because the middle of 1 meter is 0.5 meters, and the middle of 2 meters and 4 meters is of course a round number, that actually misaligns that. So yeah, let me build this one up as well. And there we go, and even Bob is coming over to check it out. And do you like it, Bob? You might be wondering, by the way, why there is a lonesome facility over here that's not actually connected up to the miner, and that is the facility that is making cables. Now, the reason I actually didn't connect this up is because you're going to need a lot more wire initially than you need cables. Cables are very fast to make if you have wire, which we do. And if we need any cables, we can just get some wire, just dump it straight into the container over here, and that means that we will have some cables. I already did that. As you can see, I have 65 cables on me, and that's probably more than I'm going to need for a long while already. So I just put it down to have the convenience of not having to handcraft it, but I intentionally did not connect it to the main thing just yet, because we are going to need a lot of wire. Now, similarly, I've done the same thing over on the other end with these screws, which looks a little something like that. Now, what I do like doing at this point is making sure we have the power poles all on the outside of our foundations, and then just put that one down wherever there is a facility and make sure you power that up. Just keeps it looking very clean. You'll have all those wires running straight through your facility. And yeah, this took me about 2 hours, I think. Let's see for the proof. Yeah, 2 hours and 13 minutes, and that is with me recording. And yeah, all in all, 2 hours of work for getting all your basics up and running. Now, of course, we have a lot more to do, but we'll focus on that in the next bite-sized episode. I hope you enjoyed this one. Make sure you subscribe if you do, and let me know in the comments if you like this type of gameplay, and I hope to catch you in the next one.